Picture this. You are standing in the heart of a primordial forest, long before the first maps were ever drawn. The air around you is thick, heavy with the damp smell of ancient earth and decaying pine needles. As you look into the distance, a cold gray fog clings to the massive, twisted roots of ancient oak trees, hiding the dangerous, bottomless bogs that silently claim anyone who dares to wander off the faint, muddy trails. Today, we view this continent as a landscape of glowing cities, warm homes, and seamless travel. But beneath this modern world lies a dark, untamed wilderness that once terrified even the bravest souls. To survive and eventually tame this chaotic landscape, humanity had to do something entirely unnatural. They had to impose absolute order on nature, forcing stone and gravel to conquer the endless mud. And the secret to this incredible transformation was not found in the chaotic clash of swords, but in the silent, mathematical precision of the ancient Roman roads. How did a society, using nothing but wood, iron, and human hands, carve perfectly straight, eternal pathways through this impenetrable fog, leaving a geometric ghost that still guides our journeys tonight? Before diving into these forgotten stories of survival and engineering, if you enjoy learning about the hidden truths of history, consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more content like this. And please comment below to let me know where you're listening from. I find it incredible that we're exploring these ancient stories together from different parts of the world, connected across time and space by our shared curiosity about the past. Now, let us leave the modern world behind. Close your eyes, or simply let your gaze soften as we step back into the mist of a very different Europe. Breathe in the cool night air. Feel the damp smell of ancient earth beneath your feet. Long before the stone pathways were laid, the concept of a road was merely a suggestion. The ancient world was a place governed by the organic, unpredictable whims of nature. If you wanted to travel from a settlement in the deep valleys of Gaul to a trading post near the dark waters of the Rhine, your path was never a straight line. It was a fluid, twisting thing. The paths of our ancestors followed the easiest routes, curving around large boulders, snaking along the edges of unpredictable rivers, and dipping into valleys to avoid the harsh winds of the high ridges. These early trails were born from the gentle, repeated pressure of animal hooves and bare human feet, pressing softly into the soil over centuries. They were paths of least resistance. In the dry warmth of summer, they were clouds of soft, choking dust. But for most of the year, under the endless gray rains of the northern skies, they turned into deep, treacherous rivers of mud. Mud that would swallow the wheels of wooden carts. Mud that would freeze solid in the harsh winter nights, leaving jagged, ankle-breaking ruts in the dark. Traveling in this ancient wilderness was a slow, exhausting surrender to the landscape. You did not conquer the distance, you merely endured it. The deep woods were places of shadows, where the canopy of leaves grew so thick that the midday sun barely touched the forest floor. It was a world of isolation. Our villages existed as lonely islands in a vast green sea, separated by days of difficult, dangerous walking. The silence of the forest was absolute, broken only by the occasional snap of a twig, the distant howl of a wolf, or the relentless rhythmic patter of rain falling on millions of leaves. But far to the south, beneath the warm, golden sun of the Mediterranean, a different philosophy was taking root. A civilization was rising that did not believe in surrendering to the landscape. They believed in geometry. They believed in the straight line. To the Roman mind, a twisting, muddy path was a symbol of chaos, a lack of control. A straight line, however, was a physical manifestation of order, logic, and undeniable power. Imagine the sheer audacity of this vision. To look at a jagged, mountainous horizon or a fog-drenched marsh and decide that you will simply draw a line straight through it. They did not want to walk around the mountain. They wanted to cut through the rock. They did not want to sink into the bog. They wanted to build a bridge of solid stone above the dark waters. This ambition required a fundamental shift in how human beings interacted with the earth. It was the beginning of an era defined by the slow grinding of stone against stone, the quiet, unyielding rhythm of progress. To understand the magnitude of what they achieved, we must slow down and appreciate the profound patience required. There were no machines to tear through the forests. There were no engines to haul the heavy basalt and limestone. Every single inch of the tens of thousands of miles of roads that would eventually blanket the continent was built by the steady rhythm of human hands. It was a symphony of labor, composed of millions of small, repetitive actions. Think of the damp smell of ancient earth being turned over by iron shovels. Day after day, month after month, year after year. The work was slow, methodical, and deeply hypnotic. It was the transformation of wilderness into civilization, one heavy stone at a time. When we look at the ruins of these roads today, covered in soft green moss and worn smooth by 2,000 years of rain, it is easy to forget the colossal effort it took to lay the very first stone. We forget the surveyors who stood in the freezing rain, holding primitive wooden instruments, and trying to find a perfectly straight line through a forest so dense you could not see more than 20 paces ahead. We forget the countless men who spent their lives breaking rocks in silent quarries, their world defined only by the slow grinding of stone and the dust in the air. These roads were not just physical structures, they were the arteries of an empire. They were built to move legions of soldiers swiftly across the continent, to ensure that the heavy boots of Rome could march to any rebellion, anywhere, at a moment's notice. But in times of peace, they became something much more profound. They became the veins through which culture, language, trade, and ideas flowed slowly across the land. For the first time in human history, the vast, frightening expanse of Europe was tethered together by a web of gray stone. The terrifying, endless forests were suddenly cut by a ribbon of safety. If you stayed on the stones, you were connected to Rome. You were part of a larger, organized world. You were no longer lost in the dark. Tonight, as you rest in the comfort of your own space, try to visualize that single, straight line of pale stone, cutting through a dark, moonlit forest. Imagine the quiet strength of those ancient rocks, resting firmly in the soil, bearing the weight of history. The muddy, chaotic trails of the past have been replaced by a foundation of absolute stability. In the chapters to come, we will walk this path together, step by slow step. We will stand beside the surveyors in the quiet morning mist. We will listen to the rhythmic, soothing sounds of the earth being moved, and the heavy, satisfying thud of massive stones locking into place. We will witness the slow grinding of stone, the careful layering of sand and gravel, and the ultimate triumph of engineering over the wild, untamed earth. There is no rush. We have all the time in the world. The stones have waited thousands of years for us to tell their story, and they are not going anywhere. As the fog rolls in across the ancient landscape, let us begin our slow, steady journey into the past, laying the foundation for a story as solid and as enduring as the ancient roads themselves. As the long, dark night slowly fades, giving way to the soft, pale light of a new dawn, the thick fog of the ancient forest begins to lift, just slightly. The world is bathed in a cool, quiet gray. The damp smell of ancient earth rises up from the forest floor, now mingling with the scent of wet ferns and the morning dew that clings heavily to every blade of grass. There is no wind. The leaves on the massive oak trees hang perfectly still. In this profound, untouched silence, a small group of men steps out from the shadows of the tree line and into an open, dew-soaked meadow. They do not march with the heavy, clanking armor of soldiers, nor do they carry the broadswords that conquer nations. They wear simple woolen tunics, their cloaks pulled tight against the morning chill. They move slowly, deliberately, with the quiet confidence of men who carry an entire empire not in their hands, but in their minds. These are the mensors, the master surveyors of Rome. Before a single stone can be cut, before the first trench can be dug, the land itself must be understood, measured, and ultimately, disciplined. They have been sent to the very edge of the known world, standing in the cold, wet grass, tasked with an impossible goal: to draw a perfectly straight line through hundreds of miles of chaotic, twisting, unbroken wilderness. This quiet, deeply patient work is the true foundation of Roman Empire engineering. It is a triumph not of brute force, but of mathematics, geometry, and a relentless, unyielding patience. Watch the lead surveyor as he steps forward into the center of the meadow. The damp smell of ancient earth is strong here, where the soil is rich and untouched. He carries a long, smooth wooden pole, taller than he is, with a sharp iron spike at the bottom. At the top of this pole sits a simple, horizontal wooden cross. From the four ends of this cross hang 4 strings, and at the end of each string dangles a small, heavy weight made of solid bronze or lead. This unassuming instrument is called the groma. It is not complex. It has no lenses, no gears, no glowing parts. Yet it is the tool that will lay out the arteries of the greatest empire the world has ever seen. The surveyor finds a patch of firm ground. He grips the smooth wood of the groma pole with both hands and presses the iron spike firmly downward, forcing it deep into the soft, yielding dirt. He twists it slightly, testing its grip, ensuring the vertical staff stands absolutely rigid against the landscape. Now he steps back. He waits. This is a world that demands patience. The 4 bronze weights hanging from the wooden cross are swinging gently, back and forth, swaying in the microscopic currents of the morning air. The surveyor simply watches them, or he does not rush them. He cannot force gravity to work faster. He breathes in the cool morning air, watching the gentle, rhythmic sway of the bronze weights as they trace invisible arcs over the wet grass. Slowly, ever so slowly, the arcs become smaller. The swinging calms. One by one, the heavy little plums come to a complete, absolute rest, pulling the 4 strings perfectly tight, perfectly straight down toward the center of the earth. Only now, in this absolute stillness, does the real work begin. The surveyor steps close to the groma. He closes one eye and positions his face just behind one of the hanging strings. He looks straight across the wooden cross, aligning the string nearest to him with the string dangling on the far side. When his eye is in the exact right position, the front string perfectly eclipses the back string, when they become a single, unbroken vertical line in his vision. He has just captured a perfectly straight line through the air. Far out in the distance, perhaps 100 paces away, standing in the pale morning mist, is his assistant. The assistant is holding a tall, slender wooden rod, painted with bright stripes so it can be seen through the gray haze. The surveyor at the groma does not shout. Shouting would break the quiet stillness of the morning, and the distance is too great for voices anyway. Instead, he uses slow, deliberate hand signals. He raises his right arm, motioning for the assistant to step slowly to the right. The assistant takes a small, shuffling step. The surveyor watches the painted rod through his 2 aligned strings. He lowers his right arm and raises his left hand, signaling for a tiny adjustment to the left. The assistant shifts his weight, moving the rod perhaps the width of a single finger. The surveyor holds his breath. He stares down the line. The near string, the far string, and the painted rod in the distance are all perfectly, flawlessly aligned. A single geometric plane has just sliced through the messy, organic reality of the meadow. The surveyor sharply drops his hand. The assistant, seeing the signal, immediately drives the painted rod deep into the earth. The damp smell of ancient earth rises again as the sharp wood pieces the soil. That is it. One single point has been established. One wooden stake in the ground. It seems like such a small, insignificant thing. A tiny stick lost in a vast wilderness. But it is a profound declaration. It is the first note in a long, slow symphony of order. The surveyor pulls the heavy groma from the ground. He hoists it onto his shoulder and walks slowly, carefully, through the wet grass toward the wooden rod his assistant just planted. His boots make a soft, rhythmic swishing sound against the dew-soaked vegetation. When he reaches the rod, he plants the groma precisely over that exact spot. The assistant has already walked another 100 paces ahead, disappearing again into the shifting fog, holding another painted rod. They repeat the process. The planting of the iron spike, the waiting, the gentle sway of the bronze weights coming to a rest, the careful alignment of the eye, the slow, silent hand signals, the final, satisfying thud of the wooden rod being driven into the soil. This is the steady rhythm of their lives. Point by point, stake by stake, they crawl across the landscape. They do not care about the winding river to their left or the steep, rocky hill to their right. The line must be straight. If a massive, ancient tree stands in their path, they do not curve the line around it. They mark the line directly into its trunk, sentencing the tree to be cut down by the clearing crews that will follow days or weeks behind them. If they reach the edge of a steep ravine, they plant their stakes right up to the cliff's edge, then send a man down into the valley, across the rushing water and up the other side, using complex geometric calculations to ensure the line picks up perfectly on the opposite bank. The hours pass with a slow, hypnotic regularity. The pale light of dawn gives way to a brighter, warmer morning. The fog slowly burns away, revealing the vast, intimidating scale of the wilderness around them. The sun climbs higher, warming the shoulders of their woolen tunics. Yet the work never speeds up. It cannot. The mathematics of the groma demand a slow, meditative focus. If a surveyor rushes, if he misjudges the alignment of the strings by even a fraction of an inch, that tiny error will multiply over the miles. A road that is supposed to connect two vital cities will slowly drift off course, missing its destination entirely. Accuracy is their religion, and patience is their prayer. Imagine the absolute isolation of this task. For weeks, sometimes months, these men see nothing but the wild horizon, the cross of the groma, and the straight line of wooden stakes trailing endlessly behind them. They sleep in canvas tents, listening to the rain drumming against the fabric, knowing that tomorrow they will wake up, smell the damp and ancient earth, and walk forward again. They are drawing the blueprint for the future, scratching a line into the dirt that will eventually become a monumental highway of stone. As the sun begins to set, casting long golden shadows across the landscape, the surveyors finally stop. The light is too dim now to clearly see the strings or the painted rods. The surveyor pulls the groma from the ground one last time for the day. He cleans the iron spike, wipes the dampness from the wooden cross, and carefully wraps the 4 bronze weights so their strings do not tangle. He turns and looks back at the work they have done. Stretching out behind him, cutting straight through the meadow, disappearing into the dark shadows of the distant trees, is a perfect, unbroken line of wooden stakes. They stand like silent sentinels in the fading light. On tomorrow, the clearing crews will arrive with axes and saws. Following them, the excavators will come with shovels and picks, ready to tear open the ground. The quiet stillness of the meadow will soon be replaced by the slow grinding of stone and the heavy labor of thousands of men. But for tonight, the land belongs only to the silence and the setting sun. The vision has been set. The line has been drawn. As you drift closer to sleep, hold on to that image. A perfectly straight line of small wooden stakes stretching endlessly over hills and through valleys, resting quietly under the stars, waiting patiently for the dawn, and waiting for the stones that will make them eternal. The long, quiet night eventually surrenders to a pale, misty morning. The silent line of wooden stakes, planted so carefully by the surveyors the day before, stands motionless in the gray light. They have waited through the dark hours, marking a phantom path through the wilderness. But today, the silence of the forest is about to change. It will not be shattered by the sudden violence of war or the frantic panic of hunted animals. Instead, it will be gently, persistently pushed aside by a new sound. A low, rolling hum that begins long before the sun clears the horizon. It is the sound of thousands of men moving together with a quiet, shared purpose. These are the legions of Rome, the builders, the men whose hands will physically tear open the surface of the world to lay down the foundation of an empire. As they march softly into the clearing, the damp smell of ancient earth rises to greet them. The morning dew is heavy, soaking into the leather of their sandals and the wool of their tunics, although they do not speak much. There is no need for words. The line of stakes tells them exactly where to go, and the discipline of their training tells them exactly what to do. They carry heavy iron tools over their shoulders. The pala, a broad, flat-bladed spade designed for moving soft dirt, and the dolabra, a heavy, double-ended pickaxe meant for breaking stubborn clay and severing thick, hidden roots. To truly understand how Roman roads were built, step by step, you must first look down, not up. A road is not simply a layer of stones resting carelessly on the grass. To build something eternal, you cannot trust the soft, shifting surface of the world. The topsoil is weak. It drinks the rain and turns to mud. It swells in the heat and shrinks in the cold. It is a living, breathing thing, and living things eventually fail. To create a path that will last for thousands of years, the builders must completely remove this unstable layer. They must dig deep, down through the dark loam, down through the clinging clay, until they find the absolute unyielding stillness of the solid earth beneath. Listen to the first sound of the morning. A solitary soldier raises his heavy iron spade. He brings it down with a slow, deliberate force. There is a soft, tearing sound as the sharp metal slices through the wet, tangled grass. Then, a dull, heavy thud as the blade sinks deep into the soil. He leans his weight on the wooden handle, prying a thick block of dark earth loose from the ground. He lifts it, the soil clinging heavily to the iron, and tosses it smoothly to the side. Slice, thud, lift, slice, thud, lift. Within moments, the man next to him joins in, then the man next to him. And soon, the entire line of soldiers, stretching for miles across the mist-shrouded landscape, falls into this hypnotic, mesmerizing rhythm. It is a slow, pulsing heartbeat of iron against earth. The damp smell of ancient earth grows stronger, richer, and more intoxicating as the dark soil is turned over, exposing secrets that have been buried in darkness since the dawn of time. This massive trench they are digging is called the fossa. It is the wide, empty cradle that will eventually hold the immense weight of the road. But for now, it is just a vast, slowly deepening wound in the forest floor. The work is incredibly slow, yet absolutely relentless. There is no rushing. Rushing leads to exhaustion, and there are still hundreds of miles left to go. Instead, the men sink into a trance-like state. Their muscles burn, their breathing becomes a deep, rhythmic sigh, and their minds detach from the heavy labor. They become one with the steady rhythm of the digging. Watch a single basket of dirt being moved. Woven from soft, flexible willow branches, the basket is placed at the edge of the widening trench. A soldier uses his spade to fill it with the cool, dark soil. The dirt falls into the basket with a soft, muffled whisper. When it is full, another man slowly bends down, his muscles moving like slow-flowing water, and lifts the heavy basket onto his shoulder. He turns and walks with a slow, measured step away from the trench, dumping the earth onto a growing mound that will run parallel to the road. He walks back, hands the empty basket down, and the cycle repeats, over and over. Thousands of baskets, millions of pounds of earth. He moves solely by the quiet, enduring strength of human hands. As the sun climbs higher into the pale sky, the trench grows deeper. The nature of the soil begins to change. The soft, dark topsoil gives way to a dense, heavy clay, colored a deep, rusty red or a pale, yellowish gray. This clay is stubborn. The flat spades can no longer easily slice through it. Now, the steady rhythm shifts. The men reach for the dolabra, the heavy pickaxes. The sound changes from a soft slice to a dull, rhythmic thumping. Thump, thump, thump. The heavy iron picks bite into the dense clay, breaking it into large, dry clumps. The men swing their tools in perfect arcs, their bodies rising and falling in unison. The damp smell of ancient earth is now mixed with the dry, dusty scent of the deeper, older clay. Occasionally, a pick strikes a buried stone with a sharp, muted clink, a brief interruption in the otherwise endlessly repetitive soundscape of the labor. If they encounter the thick, creeping root of a massive oak tree, they do not detour. The straight line must be maintained. They use small axes to chop away at the tough, fibrous wood. The sound of the axe hitting the wet wood echoes softly through the trees, a rhythmic chopping that eventually severs the root, allowing the trench to continue its flawless geometric path forward. They dig down 3 feet, sometimes 4 feet. In softer marshlands, they might dig down 10 feet, desperately searching for a firm foundation. The trench is wide, often 20 feet across, providing a massive, empty channel that stretches as far as the eye can see. You imagine standing at the bottom of this freshly dug fossa. You are standing below the surface of the world. The walls of dark earth rise up on either side of you, perfectly straight, perfectly vertical. The air down here is cooler, shaded from the afternoon sun. It is profoundly quiet, insulated by the thick walls of soil. The wind howling through the trees above cannot reach you. You are held safely in the cool, dark embrace of the earth. It feels like a place of deep, undisturbed rest. A place where nothing can bother you, where the chaotic demands of the surface world simply do not exist. This is the bedrock, the terra firma, the solid, sleeping foundation upon which eternity will be built. The men scrape the bottom of the trench perfectly flat, ensuring there are no soft spots, no hidden hollows, and they pack the remaining dirt down with heavy wooden rammers, pounding the floor of the trench until it is as hard as bone. As the late afternoon sun begins to cast long, stretching shadows over the landscape, the day's work slowly comes to a halt. The steady rhythm of the iron tools gradually fades away, replaced by the soft murmurs of tired men washing their hands in a nearby stream. The damp smell of ancient earth settles heavily in the evening air. The massive, empty trench lies completely still beneath the twilight sky. It is a breathtaking sight, a perfectly straight, deep channel carved into the wild earth, stretching away to the horizon. It looks like a dry riverbed, waiting patiently for a river of stone to flow into it. Tonight, as you lie in the quiet comfort of your own bed, you imagine the profound stillness of that empty trench. Think of the solid, unyielding earth at the bottom, scraped clean and packed tight, resting quietly under the starry sky. It has been stripped of the fragile, shifting topsoil, and now it waits, secure and grounded, ready to embrace the heavy, comforting weight of the stones that will arrive tomorrow. Let your mind sink down into that cool, dark space, away from the noise of the surface, and find your own solid ground, where you can rest deeply, safely, and completely. The deep, empty trench, the fossa, now stretches out across the landscape, a perfect geometric void waiting to be filled. The damp smell of ancient earth still lingers in the cool morning air, but the soft, yielding soil has been entirely stripped away. What remains at the bottom of this vast channel is the solid, the unforgiving bedrock of the continent. It is a quiet, empty space, resting patiently beneath the pale sky. The chaotic forest has been pushed back, and in its place lies a perfectly measured emptiness, a canvas of dirt and clay ready to receive the immense, heavy weight of eternity. To build a road that will outlast empires, you cannot simply lay flat stones upon the ground. The earth shifts. It freezes and thaws, swelling with the heavy winter rains and shrinking under the baking summer sun. To conquer this constant microscopic movement, the master builders of Rome understood that true stability comes from deep within. They did not just build a surface, they engineered a massive subterranean wall, buried entirely out of sight. This hidden foundation was composed of 4 distinct, meticulously crafted layers, of 4 heavy blankets of stone, gravel, and sand, each one laid down with a slow, hypnotic rhythm, designed to lock together into a single, immovable mass. Watch as the first layer, the statumen, is slowly brought to the edge of the trench. This is the bedrock of the road, the deepest and heaviest layer, and it requires stones of immense size. There is no delicate carving here. These are rough, unworked boulders, some as large as a man's head, gathered from nearby riverbeds or blasted from the sides of rocky hills. The men carry these heavy, irregular stones one by one, their shoulders straining under the immense weight. Listen to the deep, muffled thud as the first massive stone is dropped into the bottom of the trench. It hits the packed earth with a heavy, satisfying finality. It does not bounce, it simply settles, yet finding its permanent resting place in the dark. Then comes the next stone, and the next. Thud. 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 The sound echoes softly off the earthen walls of the trench. The workers move with a slow, deliberate grace, stepping carefully among the growing pile of boulders. They do not just throw the stones haphazardly. They are puzzle solvers, working in slow motion. They turn each heavy rock in their hands, feeling its rough edges, looking for the perfect orientation. They place it down, pressing it firmly against its neighbors, interlocking the jagged edges so that the stones support one another. If there is a gap, they wedge a smaller stone into the space, locking the massive boulders tightly together. The damp smell of ancient earth is soon replaced by the dry, dusty scent of raw, unpolished stone. This foundation layer, or the statumen, is often a foot or more thick. It is incredibly porous. When the heavy rains eventually come, the water will seep down through the upper layers of the road and flow harmlessly through the large empty gaps between these foundational boulders, draining away into the surrounding soil. It is a brilliant, silent drainage system, ensuring that the road above will never wash away. Once the bottom of the trench is completely paved with this rugged, uneven layer of heavy boulders, the steady rhythm of the work slowly shifts. The massive stones of the statumen are strong, but their surface is chaotic and jagged. To build upward, the builders must create a level plane. They must bind the large stones together. This brings us to the second layer, the rudis. The rudis is a thick, heavy mixture of smaller stones, crushed gravel, and broken pieces of baked clay tiles, all bound together by a primitive, yet incredibly strong lime mortar. Carts filled with this coarse gravel slowly roll up to the edge of the trench. The wooden wheels creak gently under the heavy load. The men use wide shovels to scoop the rough mixture, tossing it down onto the jagged peaks of the statumen. The sound of the rudis falling is entirely different from the heavy thuds of the boulders. It is a long, continuous crunching sound, like thousands of tiny teeth biting into the stone. The gravel cascades down, filling the empty voids between the large boulders, settling into every crack and crevice. But pouring the gravel is only the beginning. To make the rudus solid, it must be violently and repeatedly compressed. This is where the slow grinding of stone becomes a deeply rhythmic, physical vibration. The workers bring out massive wooden rammers. These are heavy logs, flattened at the bottom and fitted with sturdy wooden handles. A line of men stands atop the loose gravel. They lift the heavy rammers in unison, hoisting them high into the air, and then bring them down with all their strength. Thump, thump, thump. The dull, heavy sound of wood striking gravel reverberates through the ground. You can feel the vibration in the soles of your feet. With every strike, the loose stones are forced closer together. The sharp edges of the gravel bite into one another, locking tight. The lime mortar, mixed with a little water, is forced into the microscopic spaces, creating a chemical bond that will slowly cure over the coming months, turning the entire layer into a single, solid slab of primitive concrete. The ramming continues for hours, sometimes days. It is a monotonous, hypnotic task. The men fall into a shared trance, their breathing syncing with the heavy thumps of the wooden tools. The rudus is compressed until it is roughly 9 inches thick, forming a dense, unyielding barrier over the deep foundation stones. As the rudus slowly cures and hardens, the builders prepare the third layer, the nucleus. If the statumen is the bone and the rudus is the muscle, the nucleus is the smooth, flawless skin that lies just beneath the surface. This layer requires a much finer touch. The nucleus is composed of fine sand, crushed brick, and, in many regions, a magical ingredient known as pozzolana, a volcanic ash that, when mixed with lime and water, creates a hydraulic cement of extraordinary strength. The men mix these fine materials in large wooden troughs, adding water slowly until it forms a thick, heavy paste. They carry this wet mortar into the trench in soft leather buckets. When they pour it onto the hardened surface of the rudus, it makes a thick, wet, slapping sound. It is a soothing liquid sound, a stark contrast to the dry crunching of the gravel and the heavy thudding of the boulders. Using long, flat wooden boards, the workers spread the wet nucleus out, smoothing it over the rough gravel beneath. They work with the careful, sweeping motions of a baker, smoothing icing over a massive cake. The slow grinding of stone is replaced by the soft, wet scraping of wood against mortar. It is here, in the nucleus layer, that the surveyors and the engineers perform one of their most crucial and subtle tasks. As they smooth the wet cement, they do not make it perfectly flat. Instead, they carefully build up the center of the road, creating a very slight, almost imperceptible curve. This gentle arch is called the camber. It is a masterpiece of passive engineering. Because of this slight curve, when the heavy rains fall upon the finished road, the water will not pool in the center. It will naturally and smoothly flow down the sloping sides, shedding off the road and into the drainage ditches waiting on either edge. The water is calmly guided away, protecting the road from the slow, destructive rot of standing moisture. The nucleus is smoothed and shaped, usually about a foot thick, and then left to dry. The wet gray surface slowly turns pale and hard under the sun, forming a flawless, gently curving bed. Finally, there is the summum dorsum, or the very top of this deep, buried structure. It is the surface upon which the final paving stones will eventually rest. Sometimes, in lesser roads, the summum dorsum is simply a thick layer of tightly packed sand and fine gravel, rolled smooth and hard. But for the great highways, the arteries of the empire, this layer is merely the smooth canvas waiting for the master masons. Standing on the hardened, gently sloping surface of the nucleus, you are now standing nearly 3 feet above the original floor of the trench. Beneath your feet lies a mountain of invisible labor, the heavy, silent boulders of the statumen, the crushed, tightly bound gravel of the rudus, the smooth, water-resistant shield of the nucleus. 4 distinct layers of earth and stone, forcefully reorganized by human hands, pressed down into the dark, and locked together in a silent, unbreakable embrace. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, think about the immense hidden strength of these four layers. They are buried deep in the earth, completely out of sight, yet they bear the weight of everything that passes above them. They do not shift. They do not complain. They simply hold firm, providing a foundation of absolute stability. Let your own body feel heavy, sinking deeply into the layers of your mattress, supported by the quiet, unyielding strength beneath you. The hard work of building the foundation is done. The trench is filled. The ground is secure. All that is left to do is rest upon it, safe in the knowledge that you are held by something built to last forever. The deep trench has been filled. The hidden layers of the earth, the heavy statumen, the dense rootus, and the smooth, sloping nucleus, now rest quietly beneath the surface, a silent testament to the exhausting labor of thousands. The foundation is complete, holding its breath, waiting for the final touch. But to finish a road meant to last for eternity, the builders must look away from the damp earth and turn their eyes toward the mountains. For the surface of the road, the very skin that will bear the weight of marching legions and endless caravans, cannot be made of soft limestone or crumbling sandstone. It must be made of something born from the fiery heart of the earth itself. It must be made of basalt. Far away from the quiet, cleared path of the road, up in the rocky hills where the morning mist clings stubbornly to the jagged peaks, lies the quarry. Here, the air is different. The damp smell of ancient earth is replaced by the sharp, metallic scent of broken rock and cold iron. It is a place of sheer, unyielding hardness. But even here there is no rushing. The extraction of basalt is a slow, methodical conversation between man and mountain. Look closely at the master mason. He is an older man, his skin weathered by decades of sun and wind, his hands heavily calloused, thick with muscle, and scarred from a lifetime of striking stone. He does not attack the rock blindly. He approaches a massive, dark face of solid basalt with a quiet reverence. He runs his bare, roughened hand over the cold, coarse surface of the stone. He is feeling for the invisible. He is searching for the natural grain, the hidden fault lines, the tiny, microscopic weaknesses born thousands of years ago when the volcanic lava slowly cooled and hardened. He closes his eyes for a moment, on letting his fingers read the surface. When he finds the exact spot, he nods slightly. He raises a heavy iron hammer in one hand and a sharp, fire-hardened steel chisel in the other. He places the tip of the chisel against the dark stone. He breathes in, steadying his arm. And then, he strikes. Clink. The sound is sharp, bright, and utterly distinct. It rings out across the quarry, echoing softly against the surrounding rock walls. It is not a heavy, muffled thud like the earth being moved. It is the precise, musical note of iron meeting stone. He strikes again. Clink. A tiny puff of gray dust erupts from the point of impact, drifting slowly into the still morning air. He moves the chisel a fraction of an inch, following an invisible line across the face of the rock. Clink, clink, clink. This is the slow grinding of stone translated into a sharp, hypnotic melody. The mason strikes with perfect rhythm, his arm rising and falling like the pendulum of a clock. He is not trying to smash the rock, he is coaxing it. He taps a row of iron wedges into the small groove he has carved. Then, with a heavier hammer, he moves down the line, striking each wedge with equal measured force. Thwack, thwack, thwack. The tension builds inside the dark basalt. The rock resists, holding onto its ancient shape with incredible stubbornness. But the mason is patient. He repeats the process, tapping the wedges deeper, waiting, listening to the subtle groans of the rock. Finally, with a deep, satisfying crack, that sounds like thunder echoing underground, a massive block of basalt cleanly shears away from the mountain face. But the work is only just beginning. The raw block is heavy, jagged, and chaotic. It must be tamed. The mason kneels beside the fallen stone, his tools laid out neatly beside him. Now begins the monotonous, deeply soothing art of shaping. The Romans did not cut their paving stones into perfect, uniform squares. That would require too much wasted material and too much time. Instead, they shaped them into irregular polygons, massive, multi-sided puzzle pieces, some with 5 edges, some with 6 or 7. The mason uses a smaller hammer now, tapping away the rough edges, smoothing the sides. Tap, tap, tap. He turns the heavy stone, inspecting the angles. He chips away a tiny fragment here, a small flake there. The rhythm is endless. It is a slow, meditative process. The master mason disappears into the steady rhythm of his work, his mind entirely focused on the geometry of the stone. The ground around him slowly becomes blanketed in a soft gray snow of stone dust. Hours pass. The sun moves across the sky. The sound of 100 masons working in the quarry blends into a continuous, soothing hum, a lullaby of industry that vibrates through the very air. When the stones are finally shaped, heavy, dark, and smooth, they are loaded onto sturdy wooden carts and carried slowly down the mountain, their wooden wheels groaning under the immense weight. They arrive at the edge of the finished roadbed, where the hard, gently sloping surface of the nucleus waits. Here, another team of master craftsmen takes over. The paving of the summum dorsum is an act of extreme precision. The road must be perfectly smooth, yet incredibly strong, and the men lift the first heavy basalt polygon and lower it gently onto the center of the roadbed. It sits there, a dark, solitary island on the pale cement. Then they bring the next stone. This is where the true genius of the master masons reveals itself. They do not use mortar to bind these surface stones together. They rely entirely on friction, gravity, and absolute flawless fit. A mason looks at the unique angled edge of the first stone and then searches the pile for a second stone with a perfectly matching inverse angle. He finds it. The heavy block is lifted by 2 men using iron tongs. They slide it slowly towards the first stone. Scrape. The heavy basalt drags softly against the concrete bed. The mason guides it with his hands, feeling the gap between the 2 massive blocks. They push the second stone into place. It slides against the first with a deep, grinding sigh. The fit is astonishing. The 2 irregular edges lock together so tightly, so perfectly, that not even a single blade of grass, not even the thinnest blade of an iron knife could be slipped between them. They have become one solid surface. Piece by piece, the massive puzzle is assembled. The men work on their hands and knees, their faces close to the stone. They ensure that the top surface of every block is perfectly flush with its neighbors. If a stone sits too high, they lift it out, scrape away a tiny fraction of the sand beneath it, and lower it back down until it rests in absolute harmony with the stones around it. The steady rhythm of placing the stones continues down the line, slowly covering the pale foundation with a dark, beautiful armor of basalt. When the road grows inch by inch, foot by foot, and as they build, they carefully maintain the camber, that gentle, almost invisible curve rising to the center of the road. When a long section of the road is finally complete, the workers step back. The dust settles. The silence returns. The dark, polygonal stones stretch out into the distance, looking like the armored scales of a massive, sleeping dragon resting comfortably upon the earth. And then, as if the heavens wish to test their work, the sky darkens. A soft, cool breeze rustles the leaves of the nearby trees. The first drops of rain begin to fall. It is a gentle rain, the kind that soothes the earth and lulls the mind to sleep. The drops hit the dark basalt with a soft, delicate patter. Pitter, patter, pitter, patter. Watch the water as it lands on the highest point of the road, on the very center of the camber. It does not pool. It does not gather into puddles. Because the stones are fitted so flawlessly, and because the curve is so perfectly engineered, the water simply glides. It flows smoothly, quietly, down the gentle slope of the dark stones. It forms tiny, shimmering rivers that trace the microscopic lines between the basalt blocks, traveling steadily toward the edges of the road. With a soft, trickling sound, the rainwater cascades off the outer stones and falls into the deep drainage ditches running parallel to the highway. The road washes itself clean. The dark basalt glistens beautifully in the rain, secure, immovable, and perfectly drained. Tonight, as you listen to the steady rhythm of your own breathing, imagine the cool, smooth surface of those ancient stones. Think of the incredible patience it took to cut them, shape them, and fit them perfectly together, leaving no gaps, no room for worry or instability. Imagine the gentle rain falling on that dark, flawless surface, the water gliding effortlessly away, carrying with it all the dust, all the tension, and all the noise of the day. The road is smooth, the path is secure, all the heavy lifting is done, and now all that remains is the quiet, perfect stillness of the stone, inviting you to let go and drift smoothly away into a deep, uninterrupted rest. Let us leave the daytime behind. The heavy, exhausting labor of the deep trenches is a distant memory. The hidden layers of the earth have settled into their permanent slumber. The dark basalt stones have been carved, shaped, and locked flawlessly into place by the calloused hands of the master masons. The road is finished. It is time to experience what has been built, not as a laborer covered in dust, but as a weary traveler seeking a quiet, unbroken path. Picture this. It is just past midnight. The bustling, chaotic noise of the ancient city has slowly faded into a soft, indistinct hum miles behind you. You are standing at the very edge of the world's most famous highway, leaving the massive stone gates of Rome and stepping out into the open countryside. The air is cool and completely still, wrapping around your shoulders like a soft, heavy woolen blanket. The sky above is entirely clear, and a full, brilliant moon is casting a pale silver light over the landscape, turning the vibrant colors of the day into a quiet, soothing painting of deep shadows and soft silver. Look down at your feet. Beneath you lies the dark, smooth surface of the road. Even though the sun set many hours ago, the massive basalt blocks have patiently held onto its warmth. If you were to kneel down right now and place your bare hand flat against the stone, you would feel a gentle, comforting heat radiating upward into your palm. It is a quiet reminder of the bright day that has passed, a stored energy that now serves only to warm the cool night air. But there is no need to linger here. It is time for rest. It is time for a slow, midnight stroll. Take a deep, slow breath of the night air. The damp smell of ancient earth still lingers in the wild fields and dark marshes far off in the distance, but here, standing on the elevated surface of the stones, the scent is clean, dry, and infinitely old. You take your first step forward. Your leather sole meets the smooth, dark basalt. Step. There is a soft, incredibly satisfying scuff as your foot lands on the stone. The sound is tiny, almost insignificant, but in the absolute echoing stillness of the night, it is clear and deeply grounding. You take another slow step. Step, and another. Step. You fall into a gentle, easy rhythm. You're not rushing to get anywhere. There are no deadlines here, no merchants to haggle with, no heavy burdens to carry. The road stretches out before you in a perfectly straight, unbroken line, completely disappearing into the silver mist of the distant horizon. It is a ribbon of absolute geometric order, cutting safely through the dark, sleeping countryside. You are completely secure here. The road is a solid, unyielding guide beneath your feet, asking nothing of you but to simply move forward. As you walk, the steady rhythm of your own footsteps becomes a hypnotic pendulum swinging in the dark. Scuff, step, scuff, step. To truly feel the profound weight of Via Appia history, you must walk it exactly like this. Not in the harsh, glaring light of the midday sun, surrounded by the deafening clatter of heavy wooden carts and the shouting of travelers. But here, in the quiet, lonely embrace of the night when the road is completely empty. In this profound silence, the stones seem to hum with a quiet, patient energy, absorbing the millions of slow, tired footsteps that have walked this exact geometric path over the centuries. You are tracing the exact same line, feeling the exact same smooth camber beneath your feet. Or it is a deeply comforting connection, a reminder that you are part of a long, unbroken chain of peaceful journeys. Look slowly to your left, and then gently to your right. Rising up from the soft, grassy shoulders of the road are the tall, slender shapes of the ancient cypress trees. In the pale moonlight, their dark green needles look almost entirely black. They stand side by side, perfectly spaced, like silent, elegant sentinels watching patiently over the road. A very gentle breeze sweeps through the shallow valley, and the tall, dark trees begin to sway in slow, graceful motion. Listen to the wind moving slowly through their dense branches. It is a soft, hushing sound. Hush, hush. It sounds exactly like the ocean, miles and miles away, rolling gently and endlessly onto a soft, sandy shore. The wind brushes softly against your face, cool and calming, effortlessly carrying away any lingering thoughts, any tension, any worries of the busy day you left behind. The trees nod gently in the dark, encouraging you to keep walking, to keep breathing in the slow rhythmic cadence of the night. As you continue your midnight stroll, your eyes slowly adjust to the silver light, and you begin to notice the shapes emerging from the deep shadows along the edge of the road. These are the ancient monuments, the grand weathered stone tombs of long-forgotten families. In the bright, unforgiving daylight, they are simply ruins of cracked marble and crumbling brick. But now, in the silver light of the moon, they are completely transformed. They are beautiful, peaceful guardians of the night. They do not evoke fear. They do not represent an end. They evoke a deep, profound sense of permanent rest. The people who built these silent monuments chose to place them along this specific road because it was a place of eternity. They wanted to rest forever beside the steady, unchanging, eternal path of the basalt stones. As you walk slowly past them, their marble facades glowing faintly in the dark, you feel a deep sense of calm wash over you. Their long, exhausting journeys are over. They are simply resting, bathed in the quiet moonlight, serenaded by the soft hushing of the wind in the cypress trees and the steady rhythm of your passing footsteps. You slow your pace even further. The road is so perfectly flat, the camber so expertly and smoothly sloped, that walking requires almost no physical effort at all. You do not need to look down to avoid muddy ruts, treacherous tree roots, or sharp, loose rocks. The master masons have taken care of all of that for you. They spent years of their lives cutting, shaping, and fitting every single stone so that tonight, thousands of years later, you could walk with your eyes half closed, trusting the path completely and utterly. Your mind begins to drift, untethered from worry, floating lightly and safely above the steady rhythm of your footsteps. Scuff, step, scuff, step. The dark stones pass smoothly beneath you. You imagine the immense, buried strength of the 4 hidden layers supporting you in the dark earth below. The heavy, silent statumen boulders, the tightly packed rudous gravel, the smooth, sloping nucleus cement. They are all down there in the absolute dark, holding the earth steady. Are you ensuring that your path remains secure and unbroken? You are walking on a masterpiece of patience, an architectural lullaby constructed of rock and earth, designed specifically to outlast time itself. Far ahead in the distance, a light, cool mist begins to gather in the low valleys. It glows softly in the moonlight, a pale, floating blanket settling gently over the sleeping fields. The perfectly straight line of the road cuts directly through it, a dark, reassuring guide leading you safely into the soft, quiet unknown. There is nowhere else you need to be. There is nothing else you need to do. The world outside the edges of this road has fallen completely and profoundly silent. There is only the cool night air, the gentle hypnotic sway of the tall cypress trees, the warm, dark stones beneath your feet, and the steady or endless rhythm of your journey. With every slow step you take, your shoulders drop a little lower. The tension in your neck melts away, carried off into the dark by the soft, hushing wind. Your breathing perfectly matches the slow, deliberate, unhurried pace of your feet. In slowly, out slowly. The ancient road is endlessly patient. It has waited over 2,000 years for you to take this quiet walk, and it will remain right here, holding its silent vigil for thousands of years more. It holds the fading memories of marching soldiers, of tired, dust-covered travelers, and wandering poets, all woven deeply into the very fabric of the cold stone. But tonight, in this exact moment, it belongs entirely to you. It is your private, quiet sanctuary. As the cool mist thickens, you're wrapping gently around the silent marble tombs and the slowly swaying cypress trees, you realize you do not ever need to reach the end of the road. The gentle, walking journey itself is the only destination that matters. The slow, rhythmic repetition is the entire purpose. You let your eyelids grow heavy, your focus soften into the silver fog, and you simply exist in the quiet, beautiful middle of nowhere, perfectly safe on the eternal stones, drifting closer and closer to a deep, uninterrupted peace. As you continue your quiet, unbroken journey along the moonlit surface of the ancient road, a new sensation slowly begins to weave itself into the cool night air. The absolute stillness of the sleeping fields is gently interrupted by a soft, continuous murmur. It is not the sharp, alarming sound of an approaching storm, nor the chaotic noise of a waking city. It is a low, soothing, endless whisper that seems to rise up directly from the hollows of the earth. You walk a few paces further, the smooth basalt passing silently beneath your feet, and the landscape before you slowly drops away into a wide, shallow valley. There, reflecting the pale silver light of the moon, lies a wide, slow-moving river. The dark, geometric line of the road does not end here at the muddy banks. The master builders of Rome did not believe in surrendering to the whims of water. They did not curve their grand highway miles out of the way just to find a shallow ford. To maintain the absolute, unwavering authority of the straight line, they had to achieve something that seemed entirely impossible. They had to teach solid rock how to float in the empty air, or they had to build a bridge. To understand the profound magic of the Roman arch, we must once again step back from the peaceful night and return to the slow, heavy labor of the past. Imagine the riverbank not as it is now, bathed in quiet moonlight, but as a place of deliberate, unhurried industry. The damp smell of ancient earth is incredibly rich here, mixed with the fresh, cold scent of the flowing water and the dark, wet moss that clings to the river stones. Before a single stone can be suspended in the sky, a foundation must be planted deep beneath the rushing water. The workers wade into the cold, shallow current. They carry tall, incredibly thick trunks of oak, sharpened to a brutal point at one end. Using massive, heavy wooden mallets swung by teams of men pulling on thick hemp ropes, they begin to drive these wooden pillars deep into the muddy riverbed. The sound is heavy, rhythmic, and incredibly hypnotic. Thump, splash, thump, splash. The massive wooden hammers fall in perfect unison. With every slow, heavy strike, the thick oak poles sink an inch deeper into the dark, unseen clay beneath the water. They are building a cofferdam, a tight circle of wooden walls right in the middle of the river. Once the circle is complete, they use primitive wooden pumps and clay buckets to slowly, patiently pull all the water out of the center. When the muddy floor of the river is finally exposed to the open air, the builders dig down again, repeating the familiar, comforting ritual of the deep trench, searching for the solid bedrock beneath the river's path. Down in this damp, muddy pit, they lay the heavy, unmoving statumen boulders, locking them tightly together. They pour the dense, crushed rudous gravel, ramming it flat. They build a massive, solid pier of stone that rises slowly out of the water, a permanent, unshakable island anchored deeply into the bones of the earth. But a pier is only a stepping stone. To cross the empty space between the piers, to carry the heavy road over the open water, the builders must construct the arch. This is where the slow grinding of stone meets the absolute perfection of mathematics. The arch is not held together by sticky mortar or thick iron chains. It is held together by gravity itself. It is an act of engineering judo, taking the incredible crushing weight of the massive basalt blocks and turning that exact weight into the very force that keeps them suspended in the air. But rock cannot float while it is being built. First, the carpenters must create a temporary bridge of wood, a massive curved framework called the centering. It spans the gap between the stone piers, a beautiful, complex web of thick timber and strong wooden pegs. It is a ghost of the stone bridge that is about to be born. Once the wooden centering is perfectly secure, the master masons return. The stones they use for the arch are not flat polygons. They are called voussoirs. They are heavy, massive blocks of stone that have been carved into perfect, subtle wedges. They are wider at the top and slightly narrower at the bottom. A heavy wooden crane, powered by a massive wheel, walked by tired, silent men, slowly lifts the first voussoir into the air. Thick hemp ropes groan and stretch under the immense weight. Creak. Strain. The massive stone swings gently in the air, casting a dark, shifting shadow over the flowing water below. The masons guide it down, lowering it onto the very edge of the wooden centering, right where the arch begins its curve. The heavy wedge of stone lands with a solid, satisfying clunk against the wood. Then, the crane lifts the next stone. It is lowered right beside the first. The masons push the two wedges perfectly flush. Because of their angled shape, they begin to lean inward, tracing a slow, elegant curve up into the empty air. Day after day, the steady rhythm continues. A stone is lifted, the ropes creak, the stone is lowered. The masons adjust it until it fits so perfectly that no light can pass between the massive blocks. They build up from both sides simultaneously, the two curved arms of heavy stone slowly reaching out toward each other over the center of the river. The tension in the air grows as the two sides get closer. The massive stones are resting entirely on the wooden framework beneath them. If that wood were to snap, the thousands of pounds of basalt would instantly crash down into the water, destroying months of careful, patient labor. But the wood holds. Finally, there is only one empty space left, right at the very top, the absolute center of the arch. This space is waiting for the most important stone of all, the keystone. The keystone is a single, massive, perfectly carved wedge of solid rock. It is the final piece of the puzzle. The heavy crane lifts it slowly into the air, hovering it directly over the empty gap. The master mason stands balancing on the narrow, curved wall of the incomplete arch. He holds up his hand, signaling the men at the crane. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, the massive keystone is lowered. It slides into the gap. It scrapes softly against the angled edges of the stones on either side. Scrape. Grand. The friction is immense. The mason uses a heavy wooden mallet to tap the massive stone down, encouraging it into its final resting place. With one last, deep, heavy thud, the keystone drops perfectly flush with the rest of the arch. The bridge is physically complete, but the true magic has not yet happened. The stones are still resting comfortably on the wooden centering. To activate the arch to force the stones to carry their own weight, the builders must do something that requires absolute terrifying faith in their own mathematics. They must remove the wood. Down below, standing in the shallow water, men take heavy hammers and begin to knock away the wooden wedges that support the massive centering framework. Thwack, thwack. As the wood is slowly loosened and pulled away, a miraculous invisible event occurs. The thousands of pounds of stone suddenly have nothing holding them up from below. Gravity instantly pulls them down toward the river. But they cannot fall, because every single stone is carved into a wedge. As they are pulled downward, they are violently forced together. They bite into one another. The immense weight of the massive keystone pushes down and outward, locking every single voussoir into a state of permanent crushing compression. The entire massive stone bridge sinks down by perhaps a fraction of a single inch, and then it stops completely. The arch locks. The tension resolves into an absolute, unyielding stillness. Gravity has been captured, tamed, and turned into strength. The bridge will now stand for thousands of years, carrying the weight of the road, utterly unaffected by the empty air beneath it. Now, return to the quiet, moonlit night. You are standing on the smooth, dark pavement of this very bridge. The wooden cranes are long gone. The shouting of the masons is a faded memory. There is only the cool, silver light, the warm stone beneath your feet, and the beautiful, elegant curve of the arch holding you safely in the sky. Step over to the low stone wall at the edge of the bridge. Lean your arms against the smooth, worn basalt. The stone is solid, utterly immovable. It feels like leaning against the very foundation of the world. Look down at the river flowing softly through the dark, empty space beneath the arch. The water does not care about the stones above it. It follows its own ancient, liquid path. The sound of the river is a constant, gentle rushing, a beautiful, natural white noise that fills the empty valley. Swish, swash, shh. The water ripples and bubbles as it glides around the massive stone piers of the bridge, breaking into tiny silver ribbons in the moonlight. It is a sound that never stops, never changes its steady rhythm, and never demands your attention. It simply flows, washing away the silence, washing away your lingering thoughts, carrying everything slowly down toward the distant sea. You are perfectly suspended between two worlds. Below you is the constant, soft, mesmerizing motion of the water. Beneath your feet is the absolute, eternal, unmoving stillness of the stone. The tension has been permanently resolved. The keystone is locked tightly in place. The arch is holding you with effortless, invisible strength. You can rest your head, close your eyes, and listen to the soft, rushing lullaby of the river. Perfectly safe, perfectly supported, as the heavy, comforting weight of sleep slowly settles over you like a warm, protective cloak. As you leave the elegant curve of the stone bridge behind, the soft, rushing lullaby of the river slowly fades into the distance, swallowed by the vast, quiet expanse of the moonlit countryside. The road continues its perfect, unwavering line, straight through the heart of the shallow valley. The cool night air is still, and the damp smell of ancient earth rises softly from the dark fields, resting quietly on either side of the raised basalt stones. For a long time, there is only the gentle, rhythmic scuff of your own footsteps, a solitary pendulum swinging in the dark. But soon, a new sound begins to weave its way through the silver mist. It starts as a deep, subtle vibration that you feel in the soles of your feet long before you actually hear it. A low, continuous hum traveling directly through the solid, interconnected network of the ancient stones. You stop walking and listen. The hum slowly grows into a dull, heavy rumble, completely different from the sharp, violent noise of a marching army. This sound is slow, unhurried, and deeply rhythmic. From the dense curtain of fog rolling down the center of the highway, a massive shape gradually begins to emerge. It is a large, heavy wooden cart pulled by a team of two massive, slow-moving oxen. Their heads are bowed in quiet resignation, their broad shoulders pushing steadily against thick leather yokes. Clop, clop, clop. The heavy, iron-shod hooves of the oxen strike the smooth basalt pavement with a dull, muffled rhythm. It is a slow, methodical heartbeat that sets the pace for the entire sleeping continent. Behind them, the massive wooden wheels of the cart turn with a deep, groaning creak. The thick iron bands wrapped around the wooden rims grind gently against the tightly fitted stones. Because the master masons fitted those irregular basalt polygons so flawlessly together, leaving absolutely no gaps, the wheels do not violently bounce or crash. Instead, they roll with a continuous, soothing rumble. Rumble. Creak. Rumble. Creak. This slow, heavy wagon is not a chariot of war. It is the true lifeblood of the empire. To truly understand the history of European trade routes, you must abandon the modern idea of speed and urgency. In this ancient world, the movement of precious goods across the vast, terrifying continent was an exercise in supreme, unyielding patience. Before these eternal stones were laid, merchants had to wait for the dry days of late summer, praying that the muddy tracks through the forest would harden enough to support their wooden wheels. They were trapped by the seasons, hostage to the chaotic whims of the weather. But the road changed everything. The deep, four-layered foundation and the impenetrable basalt surface meant that a heavily loaded cart could travel safely in the dead of winter, or under the pouring rain, or through the thickest, wettest fog. The road never turned to mud. It never surrendered. It offered a permanent geometric guarantee of safe passage. As the massive cart slowly rolls closer, the damp smell of ancient earth is suddenly swept away by a complex, incredibly rich wave of new scents. These are the exotic perfumes of a connected world, slowly bleeding out into the cold night air. Close your eyes and breathe it in. You can smell the sharp, piney scent of thick resin harvested from the dark forests of the north. Beneath that is the heavy, salty tang of dried fish and coarse white sea salt, packed tightly into rough canvas sacks, brought all the way from the cold, gray shores of the distant ocean. There is the earthy, slightly sweet aroma of raw iron ore, heavy and cold, and floating above it all is the rich, warm, golden scent of pressed olive oil, sloshing gently back and forth inside tall, clay amphorae brought up from the sun-drenched hills of the Mediterranean. This single, slow-moving cart holds the entire geography of the ancient world condensed into a few hundred pounds of cargo, moving safely and steadily through the dark. Imagine, just for a moment, that you're not walking beside this cart, but that you are invited to climb into the back of it. The driver, an older man wrapped tightly in a thick woolen cloak, simply nods to you. You step up onto the heavy wooden axle and pull yourself over the side. Inside the cart, the air is surprisingly warm, insulated by the high wooden walls and the massive pile of cargo. In the corner, sheltered from the cool night breeze, there is a deep, inviting bed of dry golden straw. It smells faintly of summer fields and warm sunshine. You lie down in the straw, letting your tired muscles completely relax. The driver hands you a heavy, incredibly soft woolen blanket. You pull it up to your chin, feeling its comforting weight settle over your shoulders. Now, you are no longer the one doing the walking. You have surrendered the effort of the journey to the gentle, unhurried strength of the oxen. You lie on your back, looking straight up into the clear, starry sky. The edges of the wooden cart frame the heavens like a dark, shifting window. As the wagon slowly moves forward, the stars seem to glide smoothly through the frame, a silent, celestial river flowing high above you. Listen to the lullaby of the road from this new perspective. Down below, in the massive wooden wheels continue their endless, rhythmic conversation with the eternal stones. Rumble, creak, rumble, creak. Because the stones are so expertly fitted, the vibration that travels up through the wooden floorboards and into the soft straw is not jarring. It is a deep, continuous, massaging hum. It rocks you gently from side to side, just a fraction of an inch, perfectly synced with the slow, swaying gait of the massive animals pulling you forward. Clop, clop, clop. The rhythm is entirely hypnotic. It is the sound of absolute safety. If you were to look over the edge of the wagon, you would see the dark, terrifying edge of the wild forest pressing in on both sides. Out there, beyond the shoulders of the road, the world is still chaotic, unpredictable, and dangerous. Out there are the twisting, muddy bogs in the deep, on silent shadows where wolves hunt in the dark. But you are not out there. You are elevated, lifted safely above the chaos on a massive, buried wall of solid engineering. The road is a fortress of geometry, an impenetrable line of civilization cutting through the wilderness. The wild forest cannot touch you here. The mud cannot swallow your wheels. The heavy, unyielding blocks of the statumen and the rudis, buried deep beneath the earth, are holding the cart perfectly level, carrying your weight with effortless, invisible strength. You close your eyes, letting the heavy wool blanket warm your skin. The rich smells of the amber, the salt, and the olive oil swirl together into a deeply comforting, earthy perfume. There is nothing for you to do but listen to the music of the journey. The slow grinding of stone against wood. The gentle, a muffled strike of the iron hooves. The soft, rhythmic breathing of the oxen as they pull the heavy load through the mist. They do not rush. The merchants and the drivers of the ancient world knew that attempting to run on these heavy stones would only break their wheels and exhaust their animals. The secret to crossing a continent is not speed, but unwavering, endless consistency. You simply put one foot in front of the other, one heavy wheel rotation after another, and you let the perfect straight line of the road do the rest. The cart rocks gently. The steady rhythm pulses softly through the golden straw beneath you. The cool night air brushes lightly against your face, carrying away the last lingering thoughts of the day. You are part of an endless, peaceful caravan now, moving slowly and safely through the very pages of history. With every deep, rumbling turn of the wooden wheels, the tension in your body sinks a little deeper into the soft straw. The road stretches endlessly ahead, a dark, reassuring ribbon pointing exactly where it needs to go. There are no choices to make, no directions to worry about. The master surveyors plotted this course thousands of years ago, and their careful, patient math is guiding you now through the absolute dark. Let the deep hum of the stones and the steady, rocking motion of the wagon cradle you completely. The journey is long, but it is utterly secure, leaving you with nothing else to do but let go. Sink deeply into the warmth, and allow the gentle, rumbling lullaby of the ancient world to carry you safely away into sleep. The heavy, rhythmic rumble of the wooden cart slowly fades into the deep mist. The massive oxen, the weary merchant, the rich scents of pine resin and olive oil, they all drift quietly past the edge of our vision, dissolving into the endless river of the past. The journey of the empire has reached its end, but the road itself does not end. It simply waits. For hundreds of years, these dark, geometric lines of basalt were the loudest, busiest places on the continent. They echoed with the sharp, terrifying clatter of iron-shod boots, the urgent galloping of messengers, and the heavy, groaning wheels of 1,000 different caravans. But empires, no matter how powerful, are like the changing seasons. They rise with the heat of the summer sun, and eventually, they must surrender to the quiet, cooling frost of winter. The great cities slowly empty. The massive armies stop marching. The distant borders fall silent. Imagine standing on the ancient highway now, not in the bustling height of its glory, but in the long, drawn-out twilight of its existence. A great, profound silence has fallen over the continent. The damp smell of ancient earth, which was pushed away for centuries by the dust and the noise of civilization, slowly begins to return on the cool evening breeze. There is no violent destruction here. The road is not torn apart by the chaos of men. It is simply left alone. It is allowed, for the first time since the first heavy statumen boulder was dropped into the deep trench, to finally rest. Watch as the first autumn of this new, quiet era arrives. The tall cypress trees and the ancient oaks that line the edges of the road begin to shed their leaves. Without the constant sweeping motion of the heavy carts to push them aside, the leaves gently settle onto the dark basalt stones. They fall with a soft, papery whisper. Swish. Flutter. Swish. Flutter. Slowly, the perfect, unbroken line of the dark gray highway is covered in a vibrant woven blanket of deep reds, burnt oranges, and fading golds. The wind rustles gently through the dry leaves, creating a sound exactly like the breathing of a massive, sleeping creature. The hard, unyielding geometry of the stones is softened. The sharp edges of the polygon blocks are hidden beneath the quiet, colorful drift of nature. Then comes the winter. The cold air descends, and a thick, heavy snow begins to fall over the quiet fields. The snowflakes drift down in absolute silence, landing delicately on the blanket of autumn leaves. They build up, inch by inch, until the entire landscape is painted in a brilliant, yet blinding white. The road is completely invisible now, buried under the deep, insulating snow. But beneath that freezing blanket, the brilliant engineering of the master masons is still working perfectly in the dark. When the spring thaw finally arrives, the heavy snow slowly melts into icy water. But the water does not pool. It does not turn the hidden road into a muddy, impassable swamp. The invisible camber, that perfectly smooth, gentle curve carved into the unseen nucleus layer below, still performs its silent duty. The freezing water is gently guided away from the center, flowing smoothly down the sides of the stones, trickling into the ancient drainage ditches. The road protects itself, remaining solid and unbroken beneath the changing of the seasons. As the years turn into decades, and the decades slowly bleed into centuries, the rhythm of the world changes entirely. Time is no longer measured by the slow, grinding turn of a wooden wheel or the steady scuff of a leather sandal. It is measured by the creeping of roots and the silent falling of the rain. Look closely at the tiny, microscopic spaces between the perfectly fitted basalt stones. They were laid so tightly that not even a knife blade could slip between them. But time is infinitely patient. Wind-blown dust slowly settles into those microscopic grooves. The gentle rain packs the dust down. And in that tiny fraction of soil, a single, tiny seed finds a home. It does not crack the stone. It does not destroy the surface. It simply graces the ancient rock with a touch of life. Slowly, a soft, vibrant green moss begins to grow. It is incredibly delicate, like a thick plush velvet draped over the cold, hard shoulders of the road. It creeps out from the edges, feeling its way across the dark basalt. Where the massive iron-bound wheels of the trade carts once ground small, shallow ruts into the stone over hundreds of years, the moss finds a comfortable groove to follow. It paints the invisible tracks of the ancient world in bright, living green. The damp smell of ancient earth is now deeply intertwined with the fresh, clean scent of this growing moss. It smells of rain, of deep forests, and of undisturbed peace. If you were to reach out and touch the stone now, you would not feel the rough, sun-baked heat of the empire. You would feel the cool, soft, damp sponge of the moss, yielding gently to your fingertips. The great open sky above the road slowly changes as well. Without the clearing crews to cut them back, the ancient forests begin to return to the edges of the straight line. Tiny saplings push up through the soil on the shoulders of the highway. Over the quiet passing of centuries, they grow into massive, towering giants. Their thick branches reach out across the road, slowly intertwining with the branches on the opposite side. They form a magnificent living archway, a deep, green tunnel of leaves and wood that shades the ancient stones from the harsh light of the midday sun. The road is no longer a bright, exposed ribbon cutting through the wilderness. It has been embraced by the forest. It has become a secret, hidden path, sheltered and protected by the massive, silent guardians of the woods. And then there is the rain. The slow, gentle rain that falls across Europe over the span of 2,000 years. Pitter, patter, pitter, or patter. It is a constant, soothing lullaby played over centuries. This rain does what no iron hammer or steel chisel could ever do. It slowly, infinitely slowly, polishes the dark basalt. It washes away the harsh, sharp tool marks left by the master masons. It smooths the irregular edges. The stones, wrapped in their blankets of green moss and shaded by the deep forest canopy, begin to look like dark, liquid glass. They gleam softly in the dim, filtered light, utterly smooth, utterly perfect, and completely at rest. Beneath this beautiful, sleeping surface, the heavy foundation remains steadfast. The massive statumen boulders, deep in the absolute dark of the earth, have not moved a single inch. The rootus and the nucleus are still locked tightly together. They carry the weight of the new forest just as effortlessly as they once carried the weight of the marching legions. The road does not mind the moss, or the leaves, or the roots. It was built for eternity, and eternity is a very long, very quiet thing. Tonight, as you lie completely still, listening to the slow, steady rhythm of your own breath, think about the absolute peace of that slow decay. There is nothing to fear in the passing of time. The grand ambitions, the loud noises, and the heavy burdens of the past have all gently melted away, leaving behind only this beautiful, quiet stability. The stones have fallen asleep under their soft blanket of moss, deeply anchored in the earth, undisturbed by the rain and the wind. Let your own body feel that same deep, heavy stillness. Let the soft, a green velvet of sleep slowly creep over your tired mind, smoothing away the sharp edges of your day, safely holding you in a quiet, unbroken peace that will last until the morning sun finally returns. The long, quiet centuries have passed over the ancient continent like a series of slow, deep breaths. The heavy, iron-bound wooden carts are gone. The marching legions have faded into the silent dust of memory. The grand, echoing monuments of the emperors have slowly crumbled under the endless, patient rhythm of the falling rain. The wild, untamed forests of the past returned for a time, draping their green, mossy shadows over the dark basalt stones, allowing the great highway to fall into a deep, undisturbed slumber. But the story of this incredible engineering does not end in the quiet ruins of the wilderness. The road, perfectly straight and incredibly strong, was simply resting, waiting patiently for the world to change once again. Tonight, let us slowly lift our gaze from the soft green velvet of the moss. Imagine that you are floating gently upward, rising effortlessly through the dark, swaying canopy of the ancient oak trees, up into the cool, clear night air. Higher and higher you drift, until the entire landscape of modern Europe stretches out beneath you, glowing softly under the pale silver light of the moon. The world below looks entirely different now. The dark, terrifying, endless forests of the ancient past have been replaced by a sprawling, illuminated network of modern life. You can see the bright, pulsing golden lights of enormous cities, connected by wide, sweeping ribbons of black asphalt and concrete. Millions of cars travel these modern highways every single night, moving at speeds that the ancient master masons could not possibly have imagined. From high above, it looks like a chaotic, glowing river of continuous motion, a world that is always awake, always rushing forward into tomorrow. But look closer. Look beneath the bright, glaring lights and the smooth, black surface of the modern pavement. The people driving in those fast, modern cars, wrapped in their comfortable, climate-controlled cabins, are entirely unaware of the profound secret hidden just a few feet beneath their spinning tires. They believe they are traveling on a road built yesterday, a triumph of modern machinery and poured concrete. But they are not. In countless places across the continent, from the rolling green hills of England to the warm, some sun-drenched valleys of Italy, those dark ribbons of modern asphalt are simply a thin, fragile skin laid directly over the top of the ancient world. The original perfect geometric line drawn by the silent surveyors thousands of years ago still exists. When modern engineers set out to build the great highways of the present, they often found that they could not possibly improve upon the path chosen by the ancients. The Romans had already found the absolute best, most logical route through the mountains. They had already found the safest, most stable crossing over the wide rivers. And so, the modern world simply followed the ghost of the ancient one. Imagine a long, dark stretch of modern highway late at night. The air is cool and still. A single car glides smoothly along the surface, its headlights cutting a bright, temporary cone through the dark mist. The driver inside is listening to music, their mind focused on the destination ahead, completely isolated from the deep history of the earth below. But down there, beneath the thick layer of modern tar and crushed modern rock, the ancient road is still holding its breath. The four deep, magnificent layers are still doing exactly what they were designed to do. Down in the absolute dark, untouched by the sun for 2,000 years, the massive, irregular Statumen boulders rest heavily on the solid bedrock. They have not shifted a single inch. Above them, the tightly packed gravel of the rudis and the smooth, sloping cement of the nucleus are still locked in their unbreakable embrace. And right beneath the rushing tires of the modern world, the dark, multi-sided basalt polygons of the summum dorsum lie perfectly flat, perfectly fitted, silently bearing the immense weight of the modern era just as effortlessly as they bore the weight of the wooden carts. The modern world is frantic. It is loud, shifting, and deeply anxious. But it is entirely supported by a foundation of absolute, ancient stillness. The damp smell of ancient earth is still trapped down there in the dark, a permanent memory of a slower, more deliberate time. This profound contrast is the true, hidden gift of history for sleep. When you feel overwhelmed by the fast, chaotic pace of the modern day, when your mind feels like a twisting, muddy path lost in a dark forest, you only need to remember the stones. You only need to remember that beneath the fragile, noisy surface of our daily lives, there is a deep, unyielding foundation built on patience, discipline, and slow, deliberate effort. The anxieties that keep us awake at night are like the shifting, unreliable topsoil of the ancient world. They are temporary, they wash away in the rain. But the core of who you are, the deep foundation of your own spirit, is like the Statumen boulders. It is heavy, solid, and utterly immovable. You have spent your life laying down your own layers of experience, packing them tightly together, building a stable, enduring path through the wilderness of your own life. There is no need to rush anymore. The heavy labor of the day is completely finished. The trench has been dug, the stones have been cut. The perfect straight line has been drawn through the chaotic noise, and it leads directly here to this quiet, comfortable moment of rest. You listen one last time to the slow, steady rhythm of the ancient world. Feel the gentle, hypnotic sway of the bronze weights hanging from the wooden groma, settling slowly into perfect, absolute stillness. Hear the soft, satisfying thud of the heavy boulders finding their permanent home in the dark earth. Listen to the bright, rhythmic clinking of the master mason's iron chisel, shaping the unyielding basalt with infinite patience. Feel the deep, vibrating hum of the heavy wooden wheels rolling smoothly over the flawless, immortal pavement, rocking you gently into the mist. These sounds are a lullaby composed of rock, iron, and time. They are a reminder that the world does not need to move quickly to be beautiful, and that true strength is found in absolute, unwavering stillness. The ancient road stretches out behind you, on an unbroken chain of human effort, and it stretches out before you, disappearing safely into the soft, comforting darkness of the night. You do not need to take another step. You can simply lie down upon the warm, eternal stones, close your eyes, and surrender to the quiet, protective embrace of the past. As our slow, midnight journey finally comes to an end, I want to thank you for walking this ancient path with me. If this quiet exploration of the past has brought you a sense of comfort and peace, please consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a gentle like on this video. It helps us continue to uncover the hidden, relaxing stories of history. And before you drift entirely away, leave a soft comment below, perhaps a single word or an emoji, to let me know that you have found a place of rest. Let this video play out. Let the soft sounds of the night wash over you, and allow yourself to sink deeply into a perfect, unbroken sleep, safe and secure on the eternal foundation of the ancient world. Good night,